how is it that you can feel seen?
When it comes to the stage, when you're on stage, you are by yourself and you have to present your product and you get bravos, right? So that means I've done my job. Never mind what the conductor or what the director says. Um, that's that's not what do you call it? That's not important for me. But most important for me is to know that okay, the audience loved my performance. Thank you, Lord. I've done my job and I'm happy about that.
When have you felt most seen as an Asian American?
Mm. When someone's jealous of my seat at the table.
I feel like I haven't necessarily been seen. I'm still waiting a little bit on that day.
I actually always look at who the semifinalists and finalists are. And this year I realized there weren't a lot of, number one, there weren't a lot of foreigners. And also, number two, there weren't a lot of people of color in the finals. And so honestly, when I made it to the final, I did feel the pressure of a whole country behind my back. It's just because it's been a while since since a Filipino singer has won the Met, and it was I was thinking about it. It's like it would be amazing to win this for my country and for every Filipino singer out there, but also it was a lot of pressure, and so it really gives me an idea of the kind of privilege I have to have stood on that stage and to have sung there twice. Being the only Asian winner this year was huge in terms of being seen in as a community and as a minority.
I am seen as an Asian woman, and that is actually not how I want to be seen. I want to be seen as a musician. I want to be seen as an equal musician. And I want to be hired not because of my gender or my race. And so, yes, I have felt seen as an Asian conductor, but I'm not always sure if that is always how I want to be seen.
From the very beginning of my career, and still to this day, being for the longest time the only Asian in the room, and then the only Asian woman, in the room. I'm just so accustomed to it.
It's been really, really gratifying to now have had Thumbprint done in a few different productions. And when it was done at Portland Opera, it was the first time it had had an entirely South Asian cast. And there's something about having everyone in the room come from this very common experience that, I don't know, it's just, I've never felt that before in my whole time in opera. And I think it's because, there's always this level of translation that's necessary. And there wasn't any translation needed. It was just like, Ammi is making a chapati, and I don't have to explain what that is.
I auditioned for Minnesota Opera many years ago, and I remember walking into the room and seeing Priti Gandhi there. And I was actually very emotional because I had not seen someone who looked like me in the same room in that capacity. There are a handful of Indian singers, and most of us know each other. Actually, I think we all know each other. Those who are working actively in the United States, at least. That was the first time I felt seen as an Asian Indian woman.
I think it's in situations like this where people decide to ask us about our experiences, ask me about my experience, because then it's a time where someone isn't putting words in our mouth, and we get to talk about what we've been through and experienced in the field. And so in conversations like this or panels that talk about our different experiences, I love being able to share where we came from, how different it is to join this kind of an industry, this field, so different from the culture that I've come from. And to be able to talk about that. So often you're taking on the mantle of other characters and other cultures, singing in other languages. It's interesting because part of your job as a performer is to melt into the character you're singing, no matter what. Melt into the language you're singing. And so often And it's not about me being an Indian, but showing up as I am and who I'm lending to that character, to that language, and to the music involved. But even then, I still feel seen for who I am because it's my own experiences that I'm bringing to what I'm doing. And that for me is incredibly fulfilling because I get to come with my culture, with my experiences, and bring it to a space where maybe that wouldn't be present. I may not be singing about my personal experience, but that is coloring what I am bringing to the stage and to the music.
As an rebellion act as well, I was thinking, you know what, I was 30, I was ready to write opera, but also if I made it one day, there's no opera company or opera festivals would have an Asian opera festival. So because opera company only do a few operas. And if one of my opera is mine, I made it, I will be next to Verdi, Puccini, or Wagner for that matter. So then I would be treated more equal. So that was one of the reasons I decided, you know what, maybe there's more possibility for me to write opera. But of course, it's not easy to write opera.
I have been in Asian roles, and those have actually been some of the most fulfilling, some of the most seen feelings that I've had. I remember thinking, like, I am so comfortable that there's just like a cultural comfort in the room. There's a familiarity, and we really felt like immediately like family.
When I did my first Butterfly with Hawaii Opera Theater, and every single Asian character in that, including chorus members, they were all Asian because Hawaii has a lot of Asian people, and to feel that solidarity and to feel the creation of this beautiful opera with so many wonderful Asian artists, that made me realize, like, yeah, this is what this could be.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for Butterflies, but for Figaro's and for all these other operas that are not race specific, that we could all come together and have, a very multicultural, diverse stages that represent and reflect, modern audiences.
So when moments come, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my life in a story. You're like, wow, okay. It's an amazing feeling when you're like, I'm not playing. I'm not being a character on stage. I'm just being me. And that's a fantastic feeling.
I really feel most seen when people treat me as a human being. It's not every rehearsal room has been like that. So I have been seeking those moments. And I have been curious about why only in specific project or only only these two directors I feel unlock the magic, which is the universal part about opera, which is being human. And I want to have the permission to be human. Yes, I think that film, it was what you said, is coming from a soulful place than a manufactured. Like, I wasn't just but the whole team weren't just to put together a show. They try to unlock who you are as a human being and connect who you are with the character so that we can make a human come alive. And that's such a special thing, which I feel is a privilege to have that. And I really feel I have been very lucky to meet the people I met. Yeah.
Filipino character on the operatic stage, and it's going to continue to go to other places. And yeah, this is where I just felt most seen. I can just be myself. So it's just continue to ask me questions about the history of it and who came before us here in the United States to allow us these privileges now that even my parents didn't have to go through in order to just live in the United States.
I love being seen as an Asian opera singer that way, and I get to tell stories of our people, and I'm grateful for that because I'm telling, mostly it's going to be new stories.
Because of this opera, Madame Butterfly, I was most seen as Asian American or Asian opera singer, and there I was received very well because the role fit me, and I felt successful.
I do remember feeling absolutely tickled that I got to wear Indian saris on stage, which is not something I normally get to do. So I did love that. That was a lot of fun. And actually feeling so at home in the costume. And, you do feel seen because all of a sudden you are recognized for what your culture is. The content of the opera, that's a different story. It's not exactly accurate, and it's very much a fantasy, but I did love getting to look in the mirror in an opera house in my dressing room and see myself in Indian clothes. That was a lot of fun.
The answer to your question is when I got the opportunity to sing Susanna in Marriage of Figaro in a production set in colonial India. So that was very cool. This happened in 2022, so it's pretty recent with Opera San Jose. And it was a mostly South Asian cast too, which was very cool. And so all of the servant class, Susanna, Figaro, all the servant class were all South Asian. And the ruling class, the British colonizers, so that's the Count, the Countess, Bartolo, were all played by, I think they were all white. Yeah. And I thought that was like the coolest production because the premise worked so well. Like, it's like as if Beaumarchais could have like written the piece for that kind of setting. And I got to play Susanna and, I got to play my ethnicity, my heritage. And then I got to bring all of these characterizations and nuances that like only if you're Indian, like you would recognize, And so that was really fun. I mean, just being in a room of, 75, 80% South Asian people in an opera rehearsal, it was like, whoa, I don't think I'll ever get that experience again, especially in a standard rep piece. I think it's tricky because, you really kind of do have to lean into casting ethnically to really pull off the premise.
Right.
But it is commentary on colonialism then and colonialism that still exists today.
Mhm.
And I think, it just like made the piece even more relevant. So actually the person who came up with this idea for this production was Corey Dusthur, who was then general director at Opera San Jose, who is now the general director at Houston Grand Opera.
The story is of an aristocracy and of a servant class. And it's clear from Da Ponte whose side we're on. We're with this, it's kind of an upstairs, downstairs dynamic, right? What an interesting visual world and vocabulary to be able to incorporate that power structure built into the visual architecture of the piece. I don't think it's a new idea, but it speaks to the value of having different perspectives producing and directing.
There are two groups when I know I'm seeing more. When I do roles that are, first of all, Asian roles that I get to perform genuinely as an Asian performer, the authenticity is genuine and natural. So that's the first group. The second group is like Mima and Siegfried, to be able to show the passion in performing and in singing. And for them to actually see it as a character. And then not necessarily thinking that I'm Asian. Even if I even look to them Asian, when they see me as a character, and that disappears to them. And then they realize, oh, that's an Asian actor. We don't, wow, he's capable of that? That's a lot. And that's when I'm like, yes. And I can tell you, we are all capable of what everyone else can do.
Of course, the La Scala experience when I opened I debuted as Ferrando in Così fan tutte, and that was really memorable. Also was in Germany, in Munich, when I did La Sonnambula. That was great. We were voted the opera of the year.
So in terms of being seen, it was just that there was a point in my career when suddenly I was doing Alfredo, I was doing Rodolfo, I was doing this Hamlet that I premiered, and I felt like all these roles that felt right to me and felt like my heart was in them and my voice matched them. I finally felt like that came into focus with a field that, at least at the companies I was working at, were willing to look at me and see me that way. And I think we see that reflected too in, what we see in other media. In Hollywood particularly has like a huge influence on who we view as castable for what. Handsome romantic lead would always be the blonde person, because that's what we were like. I feel like in the 90s we were always seeing on TV. It was like this like California blonde aesthetic. So I just like, it seemed sort of like implicit to me that like blonde meant leading man, which was, kind of crazy in retrospect.
Just as an artist, to have those moments where you can really put all of yourself out there and share things that might be different than an audience, their own experience or their own lived experience, their own background. But in that moment, because of how you presented it, they feel like it's theirs. And especially if it comes from a deep place from inside your heart, that's really special. So I think that's what we want, we crave that connection. We crave people to get us and to see us and to understand us and to say, yeah, me too. I see that too. I feel that too. I think that's the best feeling as an artist. So Asian American or not, when my specific can become your universal. Oh, what a great feeling.
My artistic work at San Francisco Opera has been really, really life-giving, extremely therapeutic. This company fully doubled down. They fully supported me in every aspect of this concept. They did not regulate it. They did not impose on it. They just were like, let's amplify your message. Let's have the collaborative conversations. And they believed in me like no other company ever had. And that company has become my artistic home.
When I get to perform American Dream. And this opera was commissioned by Seattle Opera in 2014. And it's the story of a Japanese American family who's incarcerated during World War II, based on two real life people's experiences that have then been taken and fictionalized. Seattle Opera realized really quickly that my character, the character of Mama, didn't have enough character development. And so they commissioned an aria after the workshop to be written for me. And they interviewed my grandmother, who was incarcerated. And they used that interview to create the aria that was written for me about my family's experience. And that is, I would say, the most seen I've ever felt in this industry. I'm fourth generation Japanese American. I am so far away from Japanese culture. I didn't know really what it meant to be Japanese until the industry started seeing me as Japanese. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I guess I need to figure out like how to walk in a kimono and like what the traditional, movement is like and things like that, it feels pretty foreign to me. But telling my family's story as Japanese Americans feels really personal.
There were no like Japanese American people who were part of the creative team. It happened that the librettist who was creating An American Dream was someone, Jessica Murphy Moo, who worked with me in the communications department. So she and I were just friends. And like, when I said, hey, like, this isn't, how we would do it in my community, or this isn't what we would say, she really listened to me and started incorporating a lot of those changes into the libretto she was writing. So that's how that kind of started.
One woman came to me after the performance, and she was in tears, and she's an Asian woman, and she said, this is my family story. I grew up knowing this story. And I've heard it my whole life. And today I felt it for the first time. and she started to cry, and then I started to cry, and we embraced, and it was a real moment of I'll never forget that moment. I think that's what art can do. It can connect strangers, which we were, and it can connect us to, you know, our feelings and our history. So that response, uh, that response meant the world to me.
Without failing, every opera I wrote, either based on Asian story or Asian subject or Asian American story and realism story. So then I was asked one day, you know, about the subject of you know, stereotype and pigeonhole in art. The funny thing with me was I was pigeonholed when I was a symphonic composer. My work was you know, specifically being programmed for specific events. But once I started writing opera, I felt I actually want to be pigeonholed in my art form. And the reason being, there's just not too many Asian American operas, or for that matter, Asian American creators out there. Not too many librettists, not too many composers. And when I first started, I look around, you know, there are subjects and stories from our community was not written by composers from our community, right? It was still like Puccini all over again, taking an Asian story for granted and to just for the exoticism. So if I don't do that, if my other capable colleagues who have a chance and not to do that, then we are forever lost. So this is another thing I felt, you know, I should help the Asian American community to create operas that telling our own story and to able to lift up singers also could portray them with, you know, they feel this role belong to them, belong to who they are. So then you are lifting up a group of artists. It started with an opera. So one by one, I start writing, and I work with my longtime collaborator David Henry Huang, you know, who also became a great mentor of mine, I should say. I learned so much from David, knowing his struggle, knowing what he fight for, and knowing what his vision for the art form he's creating about. So yeah, so far we have created 4 operas together, 4 out of my 10 operas with David. So, and we will continue and have more to come.
The production of our opera, An American Soldier, which I wrote with now my frequent collaborator, the composer Huang Ro, based on the true story of Private Danny Chen, who was a 19-year-old Chinatown resident, born in New York City. He enlisted after 9/11 in the US Army and was essentially hazed to death in Afghanistan. Huang Ro and I created an opera about him, which started at Washington National Opera, then it was at Opera Theater of St. Louis, and eventually came to New York last year, 2024, at PAC NYC, the new performance space that is at the World Trade Center. And one of the things that was incredibly satisfying about that was being able to bring Danny home, as it were, to have his story performed close to Chinatown, where his community could attend, people who knew him, people who grew up with him, people who were his teachers, could see Danny's story in this wonderful performance space through this beautiful art form. And Danny's parents also got to experience that and be part of that community. They have been very supportive of the opera all along its journey through starting in Washington, D.C. But Monroe and I sort of promised them that we would bring Danny home and have the opera performed in New York. So it's very satisfying when that happened.
Leave no man behind, the warriors say, yet I'm left behind before the battle begins. I love my country, put my life on the line, but does my country love me?
And again, it's another example of second generation Asian American story. Very different ending, much sad ending because Danny died. But his struggle, his feeling of not being 100% equal, triggered him to join the U.S. Army, to prove his patriotism. That is a very unique angle, a unique story to tell. So I'm just saying I love doing what I do. I love telling those stories because if we don't do that, there might not be people who wanted to or who can tell that. So that is one big reason for me to continue writing them.
The Grammy Award that we just won for Best Opera, the cast, the story is about a mother and a son, really. And my castmate who played my mother, Fleur Barron, is also half Chinese. And so that was very special. I mean, it felt really important for a narrative like that. I mean, it wasn't a race-specific narrative, but that's how it was cast. And it felt important for the two of us to be able to go up on stage together and receive that award and make thank you speeches.
Just to give a lot of grace, I have had a ton of mentors and supporters and amazing colleagues through sort of my decades in the opera industry. I don't think I would be where I am at now without sort of a very sort of large community of people.
That I've been very lucky that these men of European descent not only hired me, but protected me. Because surely, you're absolutely right. There would have been, I would have had a hard time if they hadn't just, and I still remember when my bosses took me into the one soundproof place in the building and said, if anybody gives you a hard time, you come to me. So that was amazing. Again, I think it comes down to these wonderful people who protect you and see something that maybe, you could, carry on whatever it is that they're doing, and they give you that opportunity.
And I'm very thankful for those people that are literally angels. I truly believe that you'll meet people that are purposely placed in that particular time in your life, that moment, to show you the right path.
The idea to tell a story through music, to me, that is my calling, and I feel is a humble job that I feel that is part of my life. It's not just a profession anymore, because I could not imagine the day if I don't write music, don't create opera, don't create theatrical work, what that day would be. I would be very sad. So I'm happy. In this sense, I'm doing things that I feel should be done. And hopefully more people will join me. Together we create more. And until that day, we can do whatever we want. That would be great. But for now, I feel I do have a goal that I want to pursue, and a dream that I want to create and to bring it into reality.
是虚，精明赛过了，不这个平了路易，当那干将。